Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Town Council meeting March 3rd to order, please. And I'm so delighted to have our new council in, to have our Girl Scouts here. So yeah, we'll give them a round of applause. And they're going to run the whole meeting, and we're going to go home. No. So I'm so excited, all of you young ladies, and I'm going to ask that you lead all of us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand up and lead us in the pledge. The flag is behind you. And go ahead. Someone can start. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well done. And Sue, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Lesser.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Here.
Councilor Bailey.
Here.
Councilor Carbone.
Here.
Councilor Clancy.
Here.
Councilor Durick.
Here.
Councilor Rhodes.
Here.
Councilor Timbrow. Councilor Zambrello.
Here.
Thank you.
So what we're going to do tonight at the beginning here is I'm going to read a proclamation for the Girl Scouts, and I want you guys to listen really closely. There might be a quiz after this. When we finish the proclamation, the counselors will come behind our Girl Scouts, and we will take a picture. So moms and dads, anyone who wants to take a picture. And then at that point, we will ask you guys to take your seats here, and you can stay if you want. And then we will proceed with the regular council meeting. So please bear with me as I read the proclamation for the Girl Scouts, and then counselors, when I finish, will come behind it. So, whereas March 12th, 2025 marks the 113th anniversary of the Girl Scouts of the United States of America, whose mission it is to build girls of courage, confidence, and character, and who make the world a better place. And whereas Girl Scouts offers girls 21st century programming in science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM subjects, the outdoors, entrepreneurship, and beyond, it helps girls develop invaluable life skills and through the Girl Scout leadership. And whereas the Girl Scout movement began on March 12, 1912, when Juliet Daisy Gordon Lau, a native of Savannah, Georgia, organized a group of 18 girls and provided them with the opportunity to develop physically, intellectually, socially, and spiritually. And whereas since the beginning, Girl Scouts have emphasized public service, civic engagement, and has fostered a commitment, fosters a sense of community in girls. And whereas on March 25th, 2025, the Juliet Gordon Lau Commemorative Quarter will be released into circulation by the United States Mint, celebrating their enduring legacy of the Girl Scout founder and of the Girl Scout movement. And whereas Girl Scouts of Connecticut serve 16,000 Girl Scouts all across the state. Now, therefore, on behalf of the town, I, Ken Lesser, Mayor of the town of Wethersfield, do hereby applaud the commitment of our Girl Scouts, and we support their leadership, development, and all of America girls, and proudly proclaim the 12th day of March Girl Scout Day. In witness thereof, I set my hand and cause the seal of the town of Wethersfield to be affixed today, the 3rd day of March, 2025. Congratulations, counselors. Now, manager, let's all come behind them and let's take a picture. Any moms and dads who want to take a photo with their kids and with the counselors. I see some of you taking the candy. That's great.
Yes, more candy.
Very good. And if anybody wants to take a light bang of the gavel, you can, and then I'd ask you guys. You have to
Now
go.
you're asking for it.
If not, we are going to take the seats, and you guys can go back to your moms and dads. How about another round of applause for our Girl Scouts?
Because you hit it.
I got skills.
So the next item on the agenda is a presentation by the Central Connecticut Health District on their annual update. And I think, Dr. Doot, if you're going to go first and introduce the folks that were either board and Charlie, who we know. But Dr. Doot, please, thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to speak for a couple of minutes before we bring Charlie up, introduce myself, Diane Doot, and your other two representatives to the Health District's Board, Deborah Nault and Anne Marie Doloretto. Wanted to thank you personally for support for the Health District over the years. As Charlie has said many times to us in board meetings, public health is often silent. When they're doing their job right, you don't hear about what's going on. It's not dramatic. But you depend on your health district for things as simple as going out to a dinner out and knowing that you're going to get a meal out of a clean kitchen. Something as scary as someone who's keeping an eye on and can address an infectious disease outbreak, whether it's the annual things that come around every year, whether it's a novel threat, or it's an old disease that might be coming back, something that we all thought we'd never see again. Or something as complex as addressing opiate abuse and overdose problems. Charlie's going to get into much more detail. We all appreciate the fact that times are changing, and I don't think your job running as the town council of the town of Harvard, for the town of Wethersfield is going to get easier. But really is a plea from all of us. You know, I'm a multi-term representative to the health district. I'm a 30-plus years resident of Wethersfield, and I'm a retired health professional. And I'm confident that we'll continue to see support that we've enjoyed for the health district. So without further ado, lots more words from Charles Brown, the director of our health department.
Thank you, Dr. Doot.
Thank you very much. So, been a while since I've been up here.
We're happy to see you. And just for the public to know, this is our annual report of the Central Connecticut Health District.
Yep. So just wait for the screen to get down there and I'll get started. I know, we've got a lot to say as Dr. Doot said. So our annual report from our member towns, one of the biggest things, my name is Charlie Brown. Yes, my name is Charlie Brown, and I'm the health director for the Central Connecticut Health District. We strive to do really three things in basic form: to prevent, promote, and protect health. So some general information about our health district. We covered the towns of Berlin, Newington, Rocky Hill, Wethersfield. We serve just a little under 100,000 residents. We were founded in 1996, so we've been doing this for about 29 years as a health district, which is, pretty good amount. We're one of 20 regional health departments in the state of Connecticut. So all that area you see on the map in blue in front of you, those are health districts. The yellow are municipalities that have their own health departments. And then you see the white ones, they're what they call part-time health departments. So in Connecticut, that's kind of an idiosyncrasy. We have health departments that may not have a full-time health director, but they do have a full-time sanitarian. Other general information, our offices are just down the road in Rocky Hill on the Silas Deane Highway, 2080 Silas Deane. We also have an office on the Cromwell Ave where we have our clinical services now. We've had those for a few years now. We have 16 employees, and there are several grant-funded positions among those. And we're very proud that we have over 50 active professional and lay volunteers that help us do a variety of things throughout the year. A lot with our annual flu vaccinations coming up in the fall. We really do have a lot of volunteers that help us out, and we cannot do our mission without them. We have an oversight of a 14-member Board of Health. As you just met, the 3 representatives you have here from Wethersfield, they keep an eye on me and make sure that we're doing the right things. And provide us with strategic vision. And they really do a lot as far as that's concerned to make sure that things are running right and that we have the resources that we need to be able to protect all the residents within our district. Now to the bottom line. So this is our most recent audited numbers that we have. You'll see that the total revenue that the district brought in was about 1.8 million, almost 1.9 million last year. And a large part of those contributions were from town contributions. Each one of our member towns, they were paid at this point at $7.75 per person per year to provide public health services. In addition to that, we have program revenue like what we get from our licenses that we provide as far as health inspections and things of that nature. And then grants, we had several grants here. The COVID grants is what you see reflected here at about $774,000. Unfortunately, those grants are coming to an end this year. So, our revenues may look a little different next year. Our expenditures, the biggest thing is part of the piece of the pie that you see there are our personnel. We have professional staff, and we don't make widgets. Our people are our assets. So the majority of what you see in expenditures goes towards salary and benefits for those staff that we have. We have some professional contracts that we have. Our operating expenses to cover our offices and what we have to do are there. And the good news is that our revenues were more than our expenditures last year. So we were operating in the black. We operate very efficiently for each one of our towns. So the purpose of a public health agency, and if you can see the cartoon that's there, it says, I'll have an ounce of prevention. And don't we wish that we could go get an ounce of prevention at the pharmacy? That would make my job a lot easier. But overall, we try to prevent epidemics and the spread of disease, protect against environmental hazards, prevent injuries, promote and encourage healthy behaviors. We respond to disasters and assist our communities in the recovery from those, which everybody has dealt with here recently. And we also assure the quality and accessibility of health services for all of our residents. So a quick thing to kind of show you how, healthcare, which we're all used to, and public health are kind of similar but different. So our primary focus of healthcare is really the individual. When something happens, that individual goes and gets diagnosed and treated. Their process really talks about the management of that patient care, and the outcome is ultimately to return that individual to health. Well, in public health, the population at whole is our primary focus. They're our patient. And we use interventions like assessment, policy development, and assurance of those things to make sure that that we bring that person back to health, or our population back to health. We use systems management like the environment, making sure that that's clean, and really trying to affect human behavior so that people can be as healthy as they can be. Ultimately, our outcome is to maintain that healthy community. So this is a change that's happened in the past couple years where you see the 10 essential services of public health. They've changed the focus a little bit where we really use equity, and equity in the terms of assuring that everybody has access to healthcare and public health is the main thrust behind what the things that we do, and it's the lens that we use in all of our services. One of the main things that we do is that prevent epidemics and the spread of disease. Every week, our epidemiologist, Christine, sends a weekly epidemiology report. We send it to the town managers, we send it to the schools. Hopefully they're sharing it with you in the town council. I'm getting a thumbs up. I appreciate that, Matt. So we send that information out. It's available on our website to really provide the information about trends and what's going on in the community. Many of you know, and you know it by just hearing from your neighbors, we've had a bad year with respect to norovirus. We've had a bad year with respect to flu, and COVID and some of the other things aren't as much of a problem anymore. Having an epidemiologist who looks at the data coming from the hospitals, really does give us an advantage because we send that information out to our town managers so that they can make the appropriate decisions to protect their staff and the community as a whole. So we look at that data surveillance, that epidemiology is one of the main functions to prevent those epidemics and the spread of disease. It includes things like the respiratory viruses that I mentioned, but also sexually transmitted infections. It's grown to include things like substance use disorder and opioids, and also mental health issues and behavioral health. We also follow up on foodborne illnesses, tick-borne illnesses. We work with our school nurse supervisors, and we've been lucky because since COVID, we've had a lot more partners to be able to work with. There's more towns that have epidemiologists, so we work regionally and with statewide epidemiologists to really combine and standardize our efforts. Our Environmental Health Division, they're the foundation of the regulatory arm of what we do. So they do over 1,500 food service, temporary events, septic, pool, hotel, motel, and salon inspections annually. So just with those 5 people. They do plan reviews, permits, inspections for septic systems and water supply wells. In addition to that, they also respond to complaints. And last year they responded to 164 different complaints, working with State Attorney's Office, the Department of Public Health, each of our town social services, and a lot of this really is to address very complex issues, things like housing issues, but also things like hoarding. So our inspectors really do get in there and try to help the community in a variety of ways. Our Community Health Division, a lot of this, I'll give you an example. We work the first week of April is Public Health Week. So every year we actually do a lot of trying to promote public health in that particular time frame. But a lot of the things we do goes year round. So one of the things that I like to point out, especially here in Weathersfield, is that we use a public health preventive health block grant, basically to do chronic disease reduction. So this is prevention through policy change. So several years ago, we actually brought all of our towns together and really talked about something called complete streets. So we worked with our town planners, we worked with groups like Bike Walk Weathersfield to really bring that policy to each one of our towns. And Weathersfield was the first town to actually enact that policy as a policy for the town overall. So we really went from a communal learning conference to bring that to municipal policy. In addition to that, every year in May, we do our 4-town walking competition. And Weathersfield has won that in the past. And we encourage everybody to sign up and take part in that because it's all about being active and healthy. And if you happen to go in between the town hall and the library, you might see a bike repair station sitting there. That bike repair station came from a grant that we got and passed along to the towns. And we've continued to do that to provide the infrastructure so that each one of our towns and all of their residents can actually be healthy and take advantage of those things. As I said, every year we have our annual vaccination programs. We do flu clinics each October, and the main goals of those are really to prevent influenza morbidity and mortality, but we also use it as a means to practice for a public health emergency. And this includes being able to go out, do the mass clinics, but also to go out and vaccinate the homebound. So our nurses, our volunteer nurses, actually take that step and go home to make sure that everybody is protected. It also does provide some revenue for the agency. Our clinical health services, which is only about 3 years old, they provide immunizations as well. In the clinic, we do influenza, both child, adult, and senior high dose. They take part in our mass clinics, but they also do appointments, and we're actually looking at starting to do COVID vaccinations again. We've been doing that with a partner, but we have the capacity to do it internally, so maybe this fall you can come to our clinic and get a COVID shot. Teaching about community CT Whiz. And CT Whiz is an interesting program from the state. It's where all your immunization data lies. So for all the kids and everything, that when you get a shot, it goes into this state system. So if you ever want to find out what shots you've had, there's a repository of that information at the state. And our folks can help you get access to that. Testing and screening, we do Hep C antibody screenings, also do blood pressure screenings. As I mentioned, we do respond to the opioid crisis as well. We've been a convener of local response agencies in all of our towns in our district. Currently, we have work groups that address prevention, response, and recovery. We've been lucky, we've been awarded some additional grants to work regionally with other local health departments to use data to assist people suffering from addiction and their families. We have 2 recovery coaches that actually work out in the community. So when they find people that are struggling with substance use disorder, they meet them where they're at, and they really work to try to get them on the path to recovery. So that work happens on the Silas, Deane, on the Berlin Turnpike, but also where we find within the residents, where those overdoses happen. So our preparation for the future, we've just adopted a new strategic plan. That's thanks to our board. So we're actually looking at the next 4 years of being able to move forward with that plan. We do community health assessment and improving planning, and we're also big on community engagement. Here coming up in April, actually on Thursday, we're doing a community conversation via Zoom to talk about the opioid crisis. In addition, we're bringing all of our stakeholders together in April, on April 8th, to be able to really talk about how can we help everybody to be able to address those issues. With that, my last 2 words, as always, are thank you. Thank you for your support, for your opportunity to be able to come and give our annual update, and I stand ready to answer any questions.
Well, Charlie, thank you for that excellent presentation, and thank you for all the work you and your team does, and thank you, Dr. Dude, and the board for all that you do. And now I'll open it up. Does any counselor have any questions or comments for our Director of the Health District? Emily, Counselor Zambrello.
Thank you. So, excuse me, I just wanted to say thank you. I don't think I said this last year when you were here, but a few years ago, I was living in an apartment and my neighbor across the hall was homebound, and this was during COVID, and her family reached out to me and said, can you help us figure out how to get her a vaccine? And I said, oh yeah, I think I know what to do. I called you guys, I got connected to you, and you got right out there and got her that vaccine. And I know she was so appreciative, and so were her family. I think she got her booster shot too. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that and how you were so quickly able to help me help somebody else. So thank you.
Well, that's what we really strive to do. I mean, we are the health department for our towns, so we really do strive to provide what services that we can to every member of the community, and especially with vaccinations. I know there's been a lot in the news about vaccinations, about measles and things that are coming back that were vaccine preventable. So being able to provide those types of vaccinations to protect the community, both in a bad flu year, but also through the ravages of diseases that we thought were perhaps gone. That's really one of the things that we can help to do support all of our residents.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Zambrello. Any other council comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks, Mayor. Dr. Brown.
Not doctor. Can't claim
Charles. There's the odd person out, which is Cromwell.
Yep.
And they always seem to be the person that should be part of our health district. What has our outreach been over the years, and more specifically this year, to see if we can bring them within the fold of our Central Connecticut Health
And I
District?
know we've had this conversation a few times, and
Sure.
we have reached out. We haven't reached out in the last 2 years since COVID, but it is something that we are amenable to, but it's not something that we can force. So it's just like a dance. You have to have both partners be on the same beat and be on the same step. So we will reach out to them again to see if they're amenable to that. But that's kind of the way that stands.
Have they said why they might not be amenable? Seems like it would reduce costs for them and us in order to deliver the
A lot
services
of it, I think,
needed.
is the travelers. I think it's
Okay.
how they support and what contracts that they have in support of that particular tournament, and whether or not that would be in line with what the health district can provide in a manner of support. That's what I've heard in the past.
Interesting. Okay, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Forrest. Any other comments or questions? Charlie, thank you. Dr. Dude, again, the board, thank you for all you do. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Y'all have a good evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving along, the next item on our agenda is our quarterly strategic plan update. And just as a reminder for the public and the council, we passed a strategic plan, the previous council, and with help from some of the new councilors and other folks that were running for office. And every quarter, we get an update of where we are with the strategic plan. And I'll turn it over first to Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to have Vlada Raganese come up and give an update on the, this is actually our first official update utilizing our new software, which is, drawing a blank on the...
ClearPoint.
ClearPoint, thank you. We've got so many new software products we're doing now. And ClearPoint is designed specifically for strategic plan implementation and tracking. And so Vlada and her team have been working very hard with all the departments, getting all of these items from the strategic plan uploaded and then doing regular updates on it. And so this is your first look at this format, and so I'll turn it over to Vlada.
Great, thank you. Good evening. So today I'm going to go through the progress of working through the strategic plan and getting everything into ClearPoint and how far we've gotten so far. I'm going to talk about how to read the report and then where we're going forward. I do want to clarify I'm not going to be talking about any specific projects. There's probably 100 to 150 projects. All the current status updates are in the report, so please read through those. If there's specific questions at some point later, please reach out to me and I can clarify that. But I'm going to just be talking about progress getting to the report and how we've gotten here so far. So as Fred mentioned, myself and my team have been meeting with departments across town. We've been looking to figure out what projects they're working on and how they relate to the strategic plan and which of the 6 priorities they should be located in. And just to remind folks, the 6 priorities within the strategic plan are community cohesion and vibrancy, public facilities and infrastructure, public safety, sustainable public revenue and economic development, high-performing government, and quality education. So we've been working on pinpointing projects, rolling them into which priority they should be in, assigning project owners to those projects, setting timelines to the projects. As you can see, there's start and stop dates on there. Also setting milestones when appropriate to projects, and also setting priority, effort, and impact level scores to those as well. And those are just on a basic low, medium, high. So there's also opportunity to incorporate that into the report in the future. I just didn't want to give you too much information at once, just really give you the status updates and the timelines and what the projects are and which priority they're rolling up into, just because there are so many projects right now in there. The 3 biggest departments that hold the most projects as of right now are Physical Services, Engineering, and Parks and Rec, just due to their nature. Also with Physical Services, they do have their own tracking system, so we're really only looking at those high-level projects, those lengthy projects that really involve a lot of facilities, fields, kind of that nature, just not to duplicate work for them for tracking. So those larger projects, really. We're also looking to incorporate the clerk's office, IT, PD, and fire. We've had preliminary review of the fire safety study already. It is rather encompassing, so we're working through that. We did meet last quarter to talk about which projects should be incorporated, so we're narrowing that down further over the next couple months. Yep, so that's where we are right now. I'm going to talk about how to read the report. Can you guys see me pointing to things? No. Okay. That's all right. I think I can you see the mouse? Okay, yeah. Wonderful. So this report is broken up by each priority, each of the 6 priorities. We're going to kind of take a look at community cohesion and vibrancy here. So as you can see up at the top, there's an action item status snapshot. So it shows you the status of each project, or as the priority as a whole. So we're really taking a look at the pie chart is all the projects in total. These items in the dark green are those that were completed this quarter. The items in green are on target. The yellow is anything that's on hold, and here in blue, it's anything that really has no information, and you're not seeing any within this priority, but if you saw anything that was red, that would mean that that project was below plan. And that could be for internal reasons, that could be because of an agency, that could really be for a number of reasons. You really have to look at the status to see why a project was on hold or below plan or really any type of reason like that. So the way you kind of take a look at this, as I mentioned, is by priority. The initiative is really what you can take a look at or refer to as a project. So that's anything that we're really tracking, an individual project is called an initiative. Here you can see a visual representation for what the status is, just very quickly as you're scrolling through. Anything that has a little arrow means it's on target. Anything that's yellow here is on hold. And then let's see if we can grab. There we go. Anything here with a little green thumbs up means that it was completed in the current quarter. And just in case we didn't catch it, or I didn't mention it in the beginning, is the report that you're seeing is always for the quarter that previously completed. So we're not looking at the current quarter. The current quarter will be reported on in the month after the closing. So for example, this quarter that we're in now is Q3 of fiscal year 25. So it ranges from January to March. So it will be reported on in April. And then I'll come in May and provide an update. So that's kind of the timeline that we'll have in the future moving forward. And I'll be happy to speak to any kind of groupings of projects in the future. But that's kind of how the timeline of each quarter will go. So just to get back to it, the green arrows are on target. Yellow is on hold. You can see here there's a couple that are below plan. You can see why that's going on there. And then anything here that you see that has a strike through it means that it was completed, but not in the current quarter. It means that it was completed in a previous quarter. That's why there isn't a little green thumbs up, because it wasn't in this quarter. So those are kind of how you would read the status updates there. And that's pretty much how to take a look at the report. And we can just kind of scroll through and you can see how the status summaries change from strategic priority to priority. And you can kind of see how this one is pretty heavy. So there's some that are heavy just due to their nature, they're capital projects, so they kind of tend to land within the strategic plan. So that one was public facilities and infrastructure, so we have quite a high volume of those projects. Where we're going in the future is we are looking to incorporate other information as you'd kind of like to see it, as I mentioned, looking to add in that tracking for the priority, effort, and impact, just so you can see the projects that are the higher effort levels and what might be higher impact. We're also looking to make a more of a visual report for the public. So obviously you can see that this is linked in the agenda today, but in the future it will be on the website, and we're going to have a little bit more of an interactive piece to it. We're working towards that. As I mentioned, we still do have a couple more departments to incorporate here, so it's not quite ready to go live. I would love for that to be either in the summer or early fall. The reason that it's taking a little while is because, as I mentioned, updates really only go in each quarter. So over 6 months, you're really only seeing 2 updates go in. So it takes a little bit of time to get projects in, updates in, and then have it ready and presentable for folks to view. So that's kind of the reason it takes a little bit longer. But very excited about next steps, finishing up the meetings with departments, and then working towards having it be more publicly available and viewable as well. But for now, you can find the reports in the agendas, like I was saying, kind of the month and a half after our quarter closes. Any questions?
So Vlada, thank you, and thank you for all your efforts in leading the team, and it's great to see all these things moving along. And as she mentioned, this will be available to the public, hopefully in the summer or fall, as we obviously want to get more input from you, but exciting where this is going. I'll just open it up to see if anybody has any questions or comments before we move on. Does anybody? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks, Mayor. Vlada, great work. And of course, this is a build over a couple years now. And thank you for all of the effort that you and the entire staff put into this, because it really can be a guiding document for us. Not to hone down on any particular specifics, but I'm just noting the one at the bottom here is hire communications manager and director.
Yep, so, that was crossed out.
So is that crossed out because it was successfully done?
Yes.
All right. So would we see, like, in current status or somewhere there in the notes, like, person successfully hired, item complete, or something of that nature?
Exactly. So that you would have seen in the quarter it was completed. So since it wasn't completed in this quarter, that's why you are not seeing this green indicator here with the little thumbs up. That's
Yeah.
how we're tracking projects that are completed in each quarter. Once it's past that, it gets that crossed off indication, and updates stop for that item because it's been completed. There's really nothing to do there at that point.
So is there a way to sort or print out all of the completed items? Is that through the town manager, of course? Is that possible to get that list of all the thumbs up, crossed out items, success, all
Yeah,
that
I can
stuff?
sort that pretty quickly.
Okay. I'd love to see all the successes that we've had, and we're tracking it, and I'd love to see what that looks like.
And I'd also like to mention, at the end of each fiscal year, we'll take a look and summarize that. I didn't say that earlier. We'll summarize that, and I can provide that either at the end of each year, or if you'd like to see that quarterly, I can just do a summary of each quarter, what's been completed separately. That's, I guess, outside of each priority, but just as a summary of everything that's been completed, we can do that too. That's pretty quick.
Whatever's easiest. I'm not trying to make any work here, but if it's a sort and a print, and we'll see a notation that says created to celebrate Weathersfield, hired a new director, whatever the answers are, I'd love to see that list.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Deputy Mayor. Further council comment or questions? Thank you, Vlada. We appreciate your work. Moving on in the agenda to item C-1, public hearing. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, I guess we're clapping. All right.
Nice job, Vlad.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for R25-002. It's a resolution regarding a federal fiscal year 2024 State of Connecticut Emergency Management Performance Grant. This is a grant we get every year through the State of Connecticut's Emergency Management Office. This is for just under $15,000. It's $14,920.95, and it is used for both the staffing of our Emergency Management Operations Center and as well as equipment and exercises and that types of thing. So again, we get this every year. It helps offset some of our costs for those operations.
In a moment, I'm going to open this up as a public hearing, but does anybody from the council have a question or comment about this item? If not, this public hearing item, does anybody have a comment or question just about this? Okay, we're going to move on to public comment. And as you start to come up here and tell us what's on your mind, and we really welcome you here. We're so excited to have you here. This is a part of democracy. I do want to say, because I think a lot of you are here for the school building projects for the elementary school, that it is not on our agenda tonight. It will not be an item on our agenda till after the budget, which passes in May, the town budget, and then May or June, we will have the plan that will be given to us from the building committee and the Board of Ed, and then we as a council will review that plan. And right now, we are targeting a referendum for our schools in September, but all those decisions we will come to us sometime May or June. I just wanted to give you that context, talk a little about the process, and so you guys are aware of what's upcoming. But it will not be on our agenda probably till late May or June. And then, as I read every meeting, I want to read the public comments information I read. During public comment, members of the public will have 5 minutes to speak on any issue. We have a lighted timer at the podium to help each speaker be aware of the time remaining for them to address the council. When you stepped up to the podium, please state your name and address, and at that point, the green light will come on, showing your 5 minutes have begun. The yellow light will come on when you have 1 minute left, and this time, ask you to begin to wrap up your comments, and the red light will come on when you've reached the 5 minute limit. I ask that you address your comments to the entire council and refrain from speaking directly to or about individual council members or the audience. I ask that you refrain from any derogatory comments, personal attacks, and please always remain respectful. This section is for public comment, and the council will generally not engage in dialogue back and forth during this portion of the agenda. If any follow-up is needed, please leave your contact information with the town clerk, and the town manager will follow up with you. At this time, invite anyone from the public to come up and state your name. And Bobby, I saw your hand right away, so Bobby, you're up first. Oh. Yeah, please raise your hand. I will recognize you, and everyone will get a chance to speak, but I saw Bobby's hand go up. Bobby? And name and address, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bobby Hughes Granado, 51 Gulf Road, and I'm a member of the Board of Ed, and I love being the chair of the Board of Ed. And I want to tell you tonight, even though the school is not on your agenda, it's definitely on my mind. So I just wanted to get started here that the first thing I want to say is thank you to our Weathersfield community, to our Weathersfield citizens for your courageous conversations we've been having. We have been having important discussions. They are debates, suggestions. We've even shown through all of this the discipline of civil discourse. And that's what I want to talk about first. Our students look to us as our role models, and our students are so important. They're important to me, they're important to all of us.
Hey, Bobby, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Please, you kind of,
Okay.
Oh, great, but address the council.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are the role models for our students as they learn their civics and their civic courses. And this is part of the strategic plan of the Board of Ed, is that our students will be exposed to how civil discourse happens. So that's our job. Also, a quick story tonight. I taught in school here in Weathersfield for 40 years. It was at Highcrest and at Charles Wright, and I loved it. Couldn't have loved it more. And I want to tell you a quick story that happened every year. So we went in September or August, and you set your classroom up. Every teacher does this. And I always got my family to come with me because you needed them to help you with all the little things. So they did. And at the end of the school year, they came back. Now, so my family's coming back to this classroom that 20 children, maybe 2 to 3 adults, and maybe more, were there. And here's my family's comment. What happened here? And I said, learning. And they said, oh my God, it's a mess. I said, it's not a mess. What has happened to our schools, this is why the story, is that our schools, our elementary schools, have been used up. They really have. When you have 20 kids, think of them in your living room, and adults, and they're there all day, every day for 181 days, and we're always doing something, it gets used up. So our schools have not been neglected. We hear that enough. They have not. They have been, especially our elementary schools right now, all used up. And the other thing I wanted to refer to tonight was the work of this transformative project of our buildings. One of the issues that's out there is that we have so much information going out that is not true. The reason I believe it's not true is because we are methodically doing this project. It's one happening after another, and that makes it slow. And when it's slow like this, people fill the void. So we're getting all kinds of stories, and all kinds of things have been accepted, and we're moving forward, and we're not. We're listening. We're working very hard to do a 10-year plan. You know how hard a 10-year plan is? And we want to get it right. We want to get it right for our citizens. We want to get it right for our children. So thank you for listening. And Weathersfield, keep being patient with this, and keep your minds open about what these schools are all about. I thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Further public comment? Just raise your hand, yes. You almost got in ahead of Bobby, but you're second. You're second.
All right. Hi, my name is Dorothy DeVink. I live at 14 Willard Street. I'd just like to express my gratitude to the volunteers that have been working so hard to plan for the opportunity to improve our schools. I know that they have a big job and a lot of opinions coming at them right now, and I just am very grateful for their time and their energy. I would also like to express my confidence in the building committee, in our elected officials, and the experts at TSKP to develop a well thought out plan for our schools. I would invite all of the residents of Weathersfield to consider that sharing their personal preferences for how things might be better for them, or they might have a better idea, is great for discussion, but also it creates doubt sometimes where there doesn't need to be doubt. I think that we need to put aside our own personal beliefs and see this through the lens of the community. and what's going to be good for all of our kids. My kids personally are not going to benefit from any direct new schools. Like that, they'll be long gone by the time this is done. But as a community member in this town, I feel very strongly that this is what is right for Wethersfield. I think that our kids need a safe place to learn that's conducive to learning in the 21st century, and I think that we have a very solid plan in place to bring those options to us, and we need to have confidence and faith in the people that are doing the job. That's it.
Thank you, Dorothy. Further public comment? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Alex Kotkin of 28 Farms Village Road, and I was born and raised in Wethersfield. I'm the son of both a former town council member and a former Board of Education member. Incidentally, I bought my child at home from them in June so that I could raise my 6-year-old daughter in the same town in which I was raised. Prior to making that decision, I reached out to multiple members of the community to get a sense for the state of education in town. Every person I talked to said the same thing. The schools are great, they're just old. One went even further, saying that Wethersfield currently ranks in the bottom half of Connecticut school districts despite having above average scores in every subject. The only thing we needed to immediately jump into the top half, and probably even into the top quarter, were updated schools. If we want to attract both young families and the best teachers to Wethersfield, we need to improve the schools. Look, the elementary schools were outdated when I attended them, and that was 30 years ago. Now they are remarkably out of date. Perhaps the most lasting takeaway I had from my daughter's introduction to kindergarten that I attended in July was the fact that the schools cannot use anything other than single-ply toilet paper for fear of damaging the aging pipes. My daughter attends web school, which means that she is arguably going to be among the most affected students by either of the two scenarios suggested by the consultants. Even so, I support the referendum and the plan to build and renovate the Wethersfield elementary schools.
Thank you, Alex. Further public comment? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yeah, so the town manager makes a good point. Children do not need to give their address. They can, you don't have to, but your name at least, and you can give your address if you want to.
All right.
But you're definitely your name.
All right. Hello, my name is Lenore Quinn, and I live at 14 Willard Street. I'm here to speak in support of the plan to renovate the schools. Last year, I was a 6th grader at Hanmer Elementary. From my experience there, which was 7 years of my life, there was nothing done to improve upon the condition of the schools. For those who aren't aware, Hanmer is currently in shambles. In the time I spent there had been very little repairs done to the school. In fact, the only thing I can remember that was repaired is one of the heaters in my classroom. Not only was my classroom cold for weeks, but my teacher had tried to contact the people who did the improvements multiple times before they actually had come in to do the repair. There had also been many other issues at our school. In my 4th grade year, there was a school-wide power outage, and they had to send us all home due to the fact that the power could not be restored. From my classroom, we could hear the kindergartners screaming because they were terrified that something terrible was happening. Even the teachers had no clue what was going on. In my 5th grade year, there was a fire. I'm not sure if the information I have is correct, but I was told that a machine in the attic of our school had imploded. We were all sent to evacuate the building, and we had to anxiously wait on the grass in front of the school while our home for 7 years could have been burned to the ground. Similarly to the power outage, the younger children at our school were terrified, and quite frankly, so was I. There were multiple thoughts running through my head, but the one that was the loudest was, is everyone okay? Imagine your 1st grader saying that. Imagine having your child come home from school saying there was a fire at school today, and I didn't know if everyone was okay. For a young student, this could be a terrifying event, especially since the teachers had little information to give us. In my 6th grade year, we had many rodent issues. One time, I was walking into my school counselor's office. I noticed makeshift mouse traps all over her room. I asked her what they were for, and they were there because there was a family of mice living behind her shelves. What if your kids were afraid of mice and they had to see one darting across their classroom? What if your kid came home with a sickness because of the health risk that mice can carry? We have all these issues in our school, but other towns seem to have none of these issues at all. I play multiple different sports, so I travel to other schools to play. The Glaston Meredith School seems to be in perfect condition compared to Hanmer. Hanmer is over 40 years old, and without having any renovations being done in those 40 years, the school is deteriorating. The paint is chipping and peeling off of walls. The ceilings have mold on them. The ceiling tiles are constantly breaking, and the floors are breaking as well. In other schools in other towns, the floors and ceiling look brand new, and there are no imperfections of something as simple as a paint job. To sum this up, Hanmer is not in good shape at all, and is on the verge of being incapable of learning in. I encourage you to vote in this upcoming referendum. Before anyone votes no, I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. 1, do I want kids to be traumatized by fires and other crazy events that should not be happening at any school? And 2, am I thinking about our community's future by voting no? Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, Laura. Great to hear from our students. Thank you for coming out tonight. Further public comment? Yes, sir, in the back. Scott, I got you next. You're on deck.
Tom Drennan, 246 Garden Street. I've been a resident of Weathersfield for the last 33 years. We've raised 2 children, put them through the school system, and has nothing to do with this council, but I have watched this town kick this subject down the road for the last 33 years. I spent the last 2 weeks going through all the notes and documentation from the building committee, and I'm here to share my concerns and leave you with some questions for you guys to consider when you're making your decision. It's been said in these chambers that we should not squeeze a school into a postage stamp. Of all the locations that have been considered, Hamner or Stillman is the smallest. When you look at the other options, even after a school is built, there'll be more than 10 acres of open space left. Going forward, will this council budget for capital expenditures to keep the other buildings repaired over the next 8 to 10 years while everything's being repaired? Other things to consider. Will there be a traffic study in Old Weathersfield? The roads are narrow, and even when school is not in session, you have to pull it aside to let other people go down the roads. It's also been stated that Hamner is one of the worst schools that needs to be repaired. So, if I understand correctly, the plan is to use the swing school and then use one of the worst schools to put students into. Does the budget, for you guys' consideration, going to include improvements to that school to make it usable? What is the plan that is for storing construction materials and also the equipment on the site that's proposed? Lastly, I live very close to this school. There are leagues, summer camps, and also, if I remember correctly, the high school baseball team plays there. What is the plan to move those situations? Where are they going to go in town? Where are the summer camps going to go? I would like to share, I'm a CPA. I spent the last 35 years of my career working in the construction industry. Over that time, I've had to make tough decisions, provide counsel to my executive leadership whenever we've had to make tough decisions to benefit our company. I now need you, our council, our elected officials, to listen to what our community is saying to you and apply some common sense and make the best decision for our town and, most importantly, our students. In closing, I do support the renovations that are needed for our school system, but I'm not in favor of the current recommended location. It does not make sense to use that location given the amount of open space, even when you go to another location that there'll be more than 10 acres available. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Further, Councilor Scott, I have you, and Christine, you're after Scott. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of Town Council. My name is Scott Wands. I live at 4 Avalon Place in Weathersfield. I'll try to keep my remarks short, as I know there's a lot of public comment here this evening. I want to voice my support for this Advisory School Building Committee's recommendation, and I want to thank them for their service to the town. I'm in support of building a new school for Hanmer students on the Stillman parcel behind the Board of Education building, and using the current Hanmer school as the swing school during the elementary school renovation process. My daughter attended Hanmer School. She's now a student at Silas Deane Middle School. We were close enough family to be walking, so we understand the impact that this will have on the neighborhood and the community. And while we don't have any other children, and thus will not directly benefit from a new elementary school, Hanmer has been in need of renovation, as previously stated, for as long as we've lived in town, and we bought our house here in 2010. And I feel for all the reasons that were stated in the consultant's report, and again, they looked at the 3 sites and they chose the best one for all the different reasons that they looked at it. And I think that's important. We need to go by the evaluations and the report's recommendations because they've taken all the considerations that the town has provided in over 15 different listening sessions. I walk my dog through Standish Park in Stillman every day. You might see me there in the morning. So I will be impacted, but I don't care about that. I know we will end up with more parkland at the end of this to walk my dog at the end of the process, and this is the right process and the right project for the town. Stillman was given to the town in the 1920s for educational use, which is exactly what this site will do. Additionally, this leaves the newly acquired Keisha property for either open space for the town or for other future town needs. I have faith that the building consultants will design a new school that is appropriate for the historic district, much as the new home built around 2015 on Hartford Ave was done when the Sacred Heart sold its parcel of land earlier this century. Again, for all of these reasons, I support the work that has gone on, the process that's taken place over the last year, the recommendations from the committee, and I urge the town throughout this process to accept the recommendations of the building committee, whatever comes out of the Board of Ed, and then Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Further, I have, yep, thank you. Christine, yep.
Christine Lasella, 37 Belmont Street. So at the last meeting, and I can't say for sure, it was indicated that the Weathersfield Historic District Commission approved the building of a new Hamner School adjacent to the existing school. This was the 2022 referendum, and that they also approved the demolition of the existing school. I have researched 2020, 2021, and 2022 minutes of the Historic District Commission notes, and I found nothing. I found no application for something like that. So I would just like to set the record straight. If that is true, I would like someone to say on this council. If that is false, I think it is fair for the public to know that was a false statement, and that is misinformation, and it was publicized and it's in the minutes. There wasn't, because the referendum failed, it never went to HDC as far as I can tell. I know you can't answer that now. I wrote emails to the town council. Many of you have seen them. Many people have seen it on social media. Old Weathersfield is a National Historic Landmark District. I'm repeating this because some people aren't on social media and don't know this. We are third most cultural district in the state of Connecticut behind Ridgefield and New London. Anything that happens in Old Weathersfield in the historic district is subject to rules, regulations, state guidelines from the Historic District Commission and the Connecticut State Office of Historic Preservation. If state money is being used for a project, an archaeological survey will have to be done on said property. If anyone recalls the Webb Deane Stevens Museum project, that was held up for over 1.5 years because they did do a survey and they found artifacts. I've been accused of, there's nothing on that land, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't make this up. This is what they do. Maybe they won't find anything, but maybe they will. They also judge whether the size and the scope of the project has an impact on the surrounding historical area. Ms. Umbrello, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to address anybody, but at the last meeting, it was stated the historic district needs to be subject, I'd have to find the quote, open to change. If the historic district was open to change, it wouldn't be a historic district anymore. My daughter came home from college last week, and I was sharing with her, Marist, I was sharing with her what was happening, and we had had conversations about that, and she said, what are they trying to do, Mom? Put a little city down here? And I feel that's, the question is, the historic district is very serious about what happens and how it's going to impact the surrounding area. Betsy Stillman left that land, yes, for educational purposes, a school and a schoolyard. Stillman School was built. It was utilized as a school until 67 or 69, when they made a decision to move it to where the current Hamner School now sits. It's still, the 2 acres is used by the Board of Education, so it is for educational purposes, and the schoolyard that sits there is a schoolyard. I have tons of stuff from purposes of historic districts, but apparently we have a lot of time. Yes, misinformation was given around town. It was said that this referendum was coming in June. The district, the committee meeting talked about, we have to hurry this along, we got to get it in by June, and that was said here. Why not Keisha? Why not 19 acres of land that you could build a school on and know that a historic district has no say in it, that the state of Connecticut isn't going to come through and ask questions and the impact? There's plenty of room. There's 6 acres across the street. Then less than a half a mile away, you have Wilkes Farm, 34 acres. The old reservoir area says 65 acres. I'm not sure. There's a lot of open space over there. And then when you build that school on Keisha land, you get High Crest, and you demolish that school, which has been said to be awful, and you have a whole palette of area that you can have trails and other things without desecrating and squeezing into 4 acres. I was going to try and be brief, but that didn't work out. Apparently we have more time, so I guess I really just wanted, for the record, for somebody, and I can come to town hall if that's what needs to be done, about the statement that HDC did not approve the demolition of that school. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Further, yeah, I see a hand in the back, way in the back, yes.
Hello, my name is Johnny Moore Dotson, and I live at 7 Springdale Road. My daughter attends Highcrest, and I am also here to speak about the plan for the school referendum. In early February, the Advisory Building Committee voted to recommend to the Town Council to use the Stillman property for the site of the swing school. They did not make that decision on their own. They were guided by the expertise of Downs Construction Company and TSKP Consultants, who had done their due diligence to present the benefits and challenges of building a swing school at each site that was an option. The consultants stated that the Stillman property was the better option of the 3 sites due to constructability and accessibility. The land is ready and able to accept a school building and has no topography constraints, unlike the other option, which has wetlands that are unsuitable for construction of a school building. The location is also more easily accessible by highway for a construction crew, with more than 1 point of entry and exit. Again, compared to the other option, which has limited access. I agree with this plan and ask the council to consider moving forward with it when it is presented. On a personal note, my daughter came home from school last week and told me she couldn't go to the nurse's office because there was a leak that flooded her space, and the nurse's office had no running water. And I learned recently that they said it can't get fixed until spring break. So I'm not sure what the backup plan is for the nurse in that situation. This is just the most recent in a string of incidents that have hampered our kids' ability to learn in a safe and healthy environment. Moving forward with this plan gets us 1 step closer to getting the new or renovated schools that our town needs. And I just want to say that I appreciate the context was provided about where things are in the process and the next steps with tentative dates. But I ask that you please make this info about the process, the tentative dates, readily accessible and available and communicated to the town residents. I think that would fill a lot of the gaps in the misinformation that's getting spread around out there. And lastly, Just a little bit of feedback. When you say things like, this topic is not on the agenda, it can be interpreted as discouraging public comment on that topic. And as I understand it, residents can discuss any topic related to the town during public comment. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, appreciate that. And before we have the next, you can come on up. While you're coming up, I'll just say, thank you for everyone coming out. Really appreciate that. This is kind of a case in democracy. It's great to see you. And your point was well taken, our last speaker. When we said it's not on the agenda, it's not meant to discourage you from talking about it. It was more to give the process, and there's no vote on it. But the point is well taken, so thank you for that. Please, name and address.
Hi, I've never done this before. I'm really excited. Grace Halpern, 92 Round Hill Road. I remembered my address, so that works. I've never done this before, but I had a quote come across my email this morning, and it was so impactful to the topic that is not on the agenda today that I did want to come and talk about it. And the quote that came across my email today is from author Lillian Katz, and she writes, "I really believe that each of us must come to care about everyone else's children. We must come to see that the welfare of our children and our grandchildren is intimately linked to the welfare of all other children. After all, when one of our children needs life-saving care, it's another person's child who will be performing it. If one of our children is threatened or harmed by violence, it is also another person's child doing it. The good life of our own children can only be secured if a good life is also secured for all other children. Where are other people's children right now? Are they having wholesome, caring, and appropriate? Are they safe in their experiences? The person who will be our president in 50 years could be someone from our first grade class. That would be amazing. I hope that that child is having a good experience. To be concerned about other people's children is not just a practical matter, it is a moral and ethical one. I want the best for our children in Wethersfield. This is how we are going to do that together, by creating schools that are safe, that allow our children to focus on education, and we can do that together. So I am in full support of our school project. I also wanted to mention the first speaker here talked about her classroom having 20 kids. My daughter is in a classroom of 27 children. Imagine the use of that room. And I love that comment was it's not used and abused, it's used and educated. They are being educated. We need to, of course, cherish our historic district. We have to appreciate the history of Wethersfield. And in order to do that, we also need to look to the future. And our children are our future. I think that covers everything that I wanted to say. And I thank you so much for your attention and for allowing this to occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you very much. Further public comment? Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir, with the hat on. Yep.
Evening. Brian Amoroso, 95 Church Street. I've lived in this town since I was 8 years old, so that's 50 years, and I actually also bought the house I grew up in. So I've used that Stillman Field quite often through the years. I was also at the building committee meeting where the consultants shared that they could very easily build somewhere else too. That somewhere else happens to have over 20 acres of space. If this project takes 4 or 5, that leaves you with 10 to 15 to do whatever you want. Walking trails, parks, open space, all kinds of things without impacting the people's lives that live in that neighborhood. If you build it in Stillman Field, you're going to have a heck of a lot of an impact on a lot of people that live around there, and they're not going to like it. I think, you know, I went to Hanmer School. I know that if I went there and it's still operating, it's obviously got problems, as do the others, and I do support the fact that they need to be updated, rebuilt, renovated, whatever you want. But if you're going to jam it into that space, I'm not going to support the referendum, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Further public comment? Yes, ma'am, in the back. Yep.
Good evening, Mary Ann Salvo Drennan, 246 Garden Street. I'm in full agreement that we have to renovate these schools. There's no question about that. However, I'm sorry, I was shocked at the last meeting when I learned that the high school that we've spent countless dollars, I can't even give you the number, can't even hold a pep rally. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling comfortable leaving this decision, that is a very important decision, up to the experts. I think that we as a community need to know what is happening every step of the way, and I truly appreciate the transparency. I did send an email to the council, just letting you know, it's difficult to find information, and we're hungry for it. We really are. I don't think there's anyone that I've spoken to in Old Wethersfield or throughout the town who is disagreeing that we need to make our schools safe and bring the technology up to the 21st century. However, I mean, you know where I stand in terms of Old Wethersfield. It just doesn't make sense to me. It truly doesn't. And it has nothing to do with where I live. It's a postage stamp. So thank you very much for your time again, and I'll see you again.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you. Further public comment tonight? Yes, and Bob, you're up second. Yes, ma'am. Yep, yes.
May I close the laptop that's here? Good evening, Patricia Carroll, 34 Chesterfield Road, former Hanmer parent. I want to thank the council for all the work that you do, the countless hours. I want to thank you for that and for listening. I think rebuilding and renovating schools is important. It's happening everywhere. Our schools are old. It's important. They need to be taken care of. And I totally support the renovation of our schools, and I support a swing school at either Highcrest or the Keisha property. I fully supported the purchase of this property several years ago. Why? Because Hanmer as a swing school is not a prudent choice. Because in 50 years, the town will once again be faced with the same issue, to renovate, to tear down schools. And then you can rebuild the school, but to tear up historic green space, Stillman Park, means we have forever lost that historic space. Yes, the Stillman deed states that land can be used for school buildings and grounds, and it already is. Stillman School still exists. I, other people on council, and here this evening were very involved in the Strong Schools, Strong Wethersfield referendum about 20 years ago. And through that, many involved parents secured the renovation of that building that still stands today. As a small note, when I was looking through the deed, it did not say anything about the ability to put a road through the park. That is even worse, I think, but I suppose that's for another day. I think a swing school in this densely packed historic district and neighborhood just does not make sense. Our master plan for Old Wethersfield clearly states the importance that new developments and consultants need to work with a historic district commission. And it appears, and was clear at the last meeting, that this was not done by the consultants. The Historic District Commission has a job to protect and preserve the many architectural phases that are associated with our historic community. Hanmer is a skill built in the post-war school design. It was a cost-conscious design to handle baby boomers and the spike in school enrollment. Wethersfield was part of the active suburban growth at this time, and that's part of our town's history. If you look at our population growth, the largest growth in town, according to the U.S. Census, was between 1950 and 1960. That's when our population jumped from 12,500 to 20,500. So this Hanmer architecture is a historical record of a monumental change that was happening in American society. So it is historic, and it does have a story to tell. It should be renovated, restored where possible, and preserved. Old Weathersfield Village has 4 centuries of architectural styles, and we need this balance and diversity, and we need to honor it, and we need to protect it. I want to thank the council member who posted some information today illuminating the role of the HDC and the many obstacles and perhaps importantly the delays we as a town will face if Hanmer is to be the swing school. I would just like some clarification, and I'm referring to something that was in the rare reminder. One of the counselors noted demolition is allowed under state statute and historic district guidelines. The Historic District Commission is charged with protecting the look of the historic district. My understanding is the Historic District Commission is charged with preserving the actual buildings. And if that's the case, that would be at odds with those comments. So if HCC does have a role, I think it's really important for council members to note this when they speak to the press. If not, it's misleading and it does not help citizens understand the viability of the options. So in conclusion, at this point, I believe a renovation and a restoration of Hanmer and the construction of a swing school at either Highcrest or Keisha to be the best option. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you. Mr. Young, I have you, and then you're up next. Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. At the last town council meeting on February 28th, the town manager said that we're not a business. And let's be clear about that we are a municipality. The discussion was all about the Little Red Schoolhouse and how that whole thing operated and how we now are coming to grips that the town has been allowing these people in there without a lease, without rent, and we're paying for everything. I sounded the alarm on March 7th, 2022, and here we are, March 3rd, 2025. Almost 3 years. Almost 3 years to accomplish something. And I'm really not sure really what we've accomplished. I know the town manager has said that he's going to have rates, and everybody and anybody that wants to use that building will have to pay based on those rates, which is fine. But, you know, that's a decentralized piece of property. That's far away, a mile away from here. Here we're centralized. We have a cleaning people that come in and clean and take care of this building. They go to schools and take care of buildings. Yet our Little Red Schoolhouse, for how small it is and where it is, it's just another place that our custodians have to go. And how much are we going to get out of it? You know, selling it would probably be the best thing to do. And I've mentioned this 3 years ago. Yet we're still here. We don't collect any rent. We get nothing except for it costs us money. And that's wrong. Now, let's think about this. In 1975, the Weathersfield Art League moved into the Little Red Schoolhouse, paying no rent. Today, they still are not paying any rent. They were in the Stillman building, which is mentioned tonight here at this meeting on other issues. And they were in there in 1960 until there was a fire, and they paid no rent. They obviously enjoyed the fact that the taxpayer would continue to pay for their allowing them to have a sole occupancy of a building, which is the Little Red Schoolhouse, and now they all have to rent it if they want to. But I think that we have taken such a beating. The citizens and taxpayers have taken a terrible beating because of the incompetence of our town councils all these years. Think about it. Mr. Erdman, who was town manager back then in 1975, had Kathy Bagley write up a memo and do some research regarding the Little Red Schoolhouse, and it was determined. There was no determination that was made except that whoever uses that building, and they're not a portion of the, I forget what the words were that they used, but they were not part of town of Wethersfield. They were outside organization. They were supposed to pay rent. She admitted to this, but they never instituted it. And my question is, there should be penalties. You know, we have a charter, for crying out loud. We have a charter that must be saying that people should be paying, and if they are not, why not? And why did this go on for all these years? This was a bad deal for the taxpayer, Mayor, and it continued now since it was exposed for almost 3 years, and nobody cares. Yeah, you might collect some rent now, but what we knew on the day of March 7th, 2022, when Bonnie Therian was asked by Mary Pelletier, who was on the council at that time, is the Wethersfield Art League paying rent? And the answer
Young,
was
your time is up. I ask you to
no.
please summarize.
We knew way back then, Mayor. And this should have been a very quick,
Thank you, Mr. Young. Thank you.
very quick thing. Instead, you
Thank you,
dragged
Mr.
it out.
Young. Yes, ma'am, you're up next. And
Hi, Evelyn DeVoe, 35 Woodside Drive, grew up on 89 Hartford Ave. Just recently moved out of Old Wethersfield. My brother and his wife and soon-to-be 2-year-old daughter now live in my childhood home. I just wanted to reiterate what I said last time I was here, that the need for new schools is essential, and everybody here agrees on that. But having the swing school on Standish/Stillman Park is an option that is where the problem lies. It is disheartening to see people trying to push this agenda, and shows how some truly don't appreciate our beautiful neck of the woods down in Old Wethersfield. This park has so much charm throughout all the seasons that other parks don't really have. Basketball tournaments are hosted there, travel high school baseball games are there, youth football practices, soccer, cheerleading practices. Many have picnics, fly kites, learn to ride bikes on the grass. That's where I learned how to ride a bike. A walking space during all the seasons. I saw so many people there even when it was blistering cold out. Like, it is a huge space where everybody congregates. For field day activities during school at Hanmer, which I partook in 14 years ago. Like, it is used immensely, and when you cut it in half, you're gonna lose that field. And what's behind Hanmer right now is an asphalt parking lot, and who knows if that can even be ripped up and turned into a park. This list could go on, but to save time, the use of this park and what it represents and provides to Old Wethersfield is unmeasurable. Please remove Standish and Stillman as an option for the swing school. Let's put it on Kaisha and make something great out of that location that has nothing. If Hanmer stays on the docket, I will be voting no. Thank you.
thank you, Evelyn. Further public comment? Yes, in the way back.
Good evening, Zach Hyde, 10 Hubbard Place. I'm here to speak in full support for the school construction plan. I live basically across the street from where the new Hamner School will be built. I know that there will be inconveniences associated with the construction and the added traffic, and I am still in full support. I will miss the park as it currently stands, but my family and I and my neighbors can walk another 100 yards to the fields at the Cove, and we can use that field up until the new park is built eventually. I think that all of those concerns with the inconveniences and the traffic pale in comparison when we're talking about what needs to be done for the in the best interest of the children of this community, and quite frankly the teachers as well. I think that the building committee has put forward a strong and thoughtful plan, and I think it's time to do it. And I would urge everybody to support this plan and move it forward as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you. Mr. Woodward. Bob?
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Bob Woodward. I live at 456 Middletown Avenue. And thank you, Mayor Lesser, for your comment that this referendum vote is going to be in September, if I heard you right. We have a budget to deal with that is scary and frightening, and I talked about this the last time. We have a revaluation out there. What is that going to do to our homes value, to our tax rate? We already have a Board of Ed request for a 5.47 increase. I got 2% as a senior, and there are a significant number of seniors who got the same. There's also people in town who fall into the category of ALICE, asset limited income constrained, and I'm not sure what the E stands for, but they're not making much more either. Somehow, we need to afford a budget, and then we need to afford a referendum. And I said up at the community center to the firm that we hired, if the town can somehow balance the budget, reduce the budget so that we can afford the referendum, it would be a lot more palatable to vote for it. You know what's out there. Groceries, eggs, insurance, electricity. It impacts us all, and it is a scary time. I was deeply upset with the 5.7 for the Board of Ed. I am sure they have reasons for doing that, but it might have been a little more sensitive to realize what's going on and what they are looking for, what it's going to be hard to vote yes for if we have to pay 5.5% into the budget. So I am glad to see the referendum, if what you're saying is accurate, and I trust it is, go off till September because we need to deal with this budget first. And that's going to be, I think, a very challenging experience. And I hope you will remember that not all of us got 5.5% increase to pay into this budget. I'm hoping that the firm we hired to do the revaluation that said if your revaluation goes up 50%, your tax rate should go down 50%. I'm hoping we'll get a tax rate mill rate of about 21 and maybe 2% beyond that. Can I dream? Anyway, I would like to, seriously. That would at least be palatable. And I hope we'll get something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Further comment? Yes, Martha? Ben, I got you after her. You had your hand up, right, Ben? Yep.
Hello, Martha Keneally, 12 Fairmont Street. I am going to speak from the perspective of having led the PAC that advocated in favor of the referendum in 2012, the successful referendum for our high school. Just as a little perspective, that obviously there was a building committee for that, but I'm not sure a lot of folks are aware that the name of the building committee was the Wethersfield High School and Hamner School Building Committee. That building committee had actually started in 2007 and was put together to put a plan forward for the renovation of both Hamner and for Weathersfield High School. Because actually, there's records going back. I saw a newspaper article that cited the need to renovate Hamner and other schools as far back as 2000. That was being discussed along with Silas, Deane, and some of the other things. But Hamner had bubbled to the top as having the greatest need, and alongside of, I'm sorry, I'll talk to you guys, Weathersfield High School was picked to move forward. And both of them were supposed to move forward throughout 2008. The plan was formed. And then the economy came to a crashing halt in 2009, and the whole thing was put aside. And then when it came back in 2011, just Weathersfield High School was put forward, and so that's what we went for. I'm going to be honest, given the support that was shown for the high school, I really do believe actually if we'd moved Hamner forward in that moment, we could have won that one too, because there was a real understanding of the impact that the schools have, not only on our children, but on the value of our homes and on the reputation of our community. And so and actually then, we did the 2012. A couple of years later, I was actually invited in by Hamner, the Hamner PTO, to present to them about how we won that referendum, because they were going to try and reinvigorate the effort, maybe 2014, 2015. And then obviously the plan started again in 2022. Hamner got a shot and it failed for reasons I think Charles Wright had a lot to do with that, having the way it was phrased, the lack of information, lack of transparency in that. My point is, I'm honestly hoping the third time's a charm for Hamner, and maybe the fourth time. They have waited a long time. And honestly, this gives the opportunity for the Hamner community to have a school first, to have a school now that has waited so long. If not, really, because of the desperate need, the disrepair, of that, and it's going to be a really tough job, Hamner actually could potentially wait for a while before and be towards the end of this, based on what I've been hearing, the projections that I saw and the discussions in the building committee. So, this is an opportunity for the school that has waited the longest, that has been waiting for 25 years, for the community that has been waiting for 25 years to get a school now. And I think we have to keep that in front of ourselves, that the priority has to be our students. The priority has to be our teachers, for whom their workplace conditions are abominable. But beyond that, I'm a person, I don't have children in the school. I fully support this referendum because it's going to impact the value of my home. This is important for all of us. And finally, it impacts the reputation of our community. What people who are deciding whether they want to have businesses here, whether they want to have schools here. So I think we really have to keep that all at the forefront. And I do want to thank the building committee, because the plan I see emerging really keeps equity at the front of it. That this is a plan where, not to rehash, but in the last plan, one school got shut down, some people got a brush up, the other schools were brand new. Everybody's going to get a great new school, whether it's renovated as new or built new. And I think that that's really important. We need to move this forward now, and I really think it's important to give the community that has waited the longest the first shot, and let's get that done for these kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Ben, we have you next.
Good evening. I'm Ben Frazzini Kendrick, 467 Church Street. I have nothing to say about schools, so I apologize to everyone who's on that topic. I was a teacher for a long time. It is dear to my heart, but I have something a little bit different to say. As I've listened to people speak here tonight, I can tell the emotion is high, and that's born of a deep caring for these projects. And it's also a feature of our democratic discourse, to be able to agree, to disagree, to discuss. But that caring could also lead to anxiety, fear, stress, anger. And And these are some of the emotions that, in my view, are also what has led to some of the acrimony in our current political climate, which sometimes makes civil discourse difficult. People, in my experience, don't tend to argue or disregard one another when things are going great. And these emotions can quickly lead to intense suffering. And it's those emotions that I wish to address tonight. So what do we do when we have these suffering born of our caring of our community? Part of it is happening right now. We're talking, we're sharing our sorrows, our suffering, our anxiety, our fear with one another so we can build each other up and support one another through this difficult process. But what happens when that's not enough? When we are not hearing one another? When we are speaking past each other like ships in the night? In those instances, we must challenge our own perceptions and underlying presuppositions to channel these emotions to positive effect, which is one of the most difficult things a person can do, to challenge their own belief system and what they hold to be true. But I wanted to share a story that I think will speak to this topic. It is not my story. It comes from a gentleman named Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a contemporary of Dr. Martin Luther King, whom King nominated for the Nobel Prize in '67. He tells a story of a small family in a small town, a husband and wife. The husband is conscripted to fight in a foreign war and is away for many years. While he is away, his wife gives birth to a child. One day the child asks her, "Everyone in the village has a father. Why don't I have one?" So that night, in order to calm the child, she pointed to her shadow on the wall and said, "Here is your father." And she began to talk to the shadow. "My dear husband, you've been away for too long. How can I alone bring up our child? Please come back as soon as possible." After many years, the father returned, and his family rejoices. Yet, when his wife goes to the market and he has the time to spend with the child one-on-one, he tries to tell the child, "Look, I am your father." And the child objects and says, "Mister, you are not my daddy. My father is another person. He used to come to visit us every night. And every time he came, my mother would talk to him a lot. When she sat down, he would sit down. And when my mother lies down, he would lie down also." As a result, the young father suffered so much at the thought that his wife was cheating on him while he was away. He began to suffer. His heart turned to stone and ice. He became very silent. He suffered deeply. His wife, returning from the market, does not understand this change. She too begins to suffer. Seeing him so deeply hurt, the father refuses to let his wife participate in their daily morning religious practices. And each day he just leaves the house, goes to the village, spends his time at the liquor shop, and does not come home until very late and very drunk. He repeated that for many days. Eventually, the wife, unable to bear the suffering of her husband, commits suicide. A short while later, the father is putting his son to bed, holding a lantern. When the lamp was lit, suddenly the child shouts, "Here comes my father." So he pointed to the shadow of his father on the wall. "You know, mister, my father used to come every night like this, and my mother used to talk to him a lot. And she cried a lot with him. And every time she sat down, my father also sat down. Every time my mother lay down, he also lay down." It turns out that his father was the shadow only of his mother. In my view, this story demonstrates two things. One, that we cannot suffer alone, which I'm glad to say tonight we are not doing. But number two, that we have to challenge our own perceptions and underlying presuppositions about what we think we know or what we think to be true, because sometimes they're not. And even when we hold deeply onto something that we just can't break through, we need to sometimes dig deeper and say, is that in fact reality? Do I need to reach out to somebody else and say, "Please, I am suffering. Will you help me?" So we need to put our pride aside so we can have those deep and difficult conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Further public comment? Anybody? I see a hand in the back. Yep.
Hi, Joan Silverio, 62 Tinsmith Crossing. I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Joan, you got to speak in the mic. Can you repeat your name and address, please?
Sure. It's Joan Silverio, 62 Tinsmith Crossing.
Thank you, Joan.
And I'm not going to be talking about schools. I live at a community called The Crossings off of Russell Road, and we recently found out that a grant had been applied for to create a waste reduction, recycling, and organic facility less than a quarter of a mile from our community. I understand that the facility will not be that close anymore. It's going to be about half a mile to a mile away. I know that we're on the outskirts of town, but we still pay taxes, and we're proud to be called Wethersfield residents. But even though the original plan has been scrapped, there still will be a facility there, and we just want to make sure that we are informed about any, changes that are going to be applied to our community that will be affected, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So we just want to thank Mr. Presley for agreeing to come to talk to our community and just keep us informed about what's going on in our neighborhood. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Further public comment tonight? Anyone else? Well, let me say before we move on to the agenda, I really appreciate the spirit which everyone came here tonight. This is democracy. I appreciate how you applauded for one another. I appreciate how much everyone seemed to care and respect other people's opinions, even if they disagreed with them. And that's what makes our town great. And I thank you all for coming out and stating your opinion. So thank you. Now to move on to from public comment to council reports. Does anybody from the council have a report to give tonight? Councilor Zambrella.
Thank you. I feel like I need my own intro for this segment that I've been doing. So I'm going to be talking about schools. And let's see, there's been so many great comments and really good feedback tonight. I don't want to repeat things that I've heard, so I'm going to try not to too much. But there hasn't been a meeting of the building committee since the last time we were all here. So I don't have detailed updates right now. So I just want to talk more conceptually about some of these things. The next meeting is next Monday, March 10th. I believe it's at 7. Am I right about that, Fred? I think it's at 7. And it'll be here in Town Council chambers, which we are very excited about. We thank the folks who gave us the feedback that we really needed to use a bigger room as these meetings have been getting more popular, so it will be here. We also have, we're going to try to do that as much as possible. There's a few scheduling conflicts with future meetings, but we're going to figure out if there's another room or if we can move those meetings so that we can accommodate more people. So at this next one, the consultants will have an updated plan that they'll be presenting. So I have not seen that yet, so I'm not going to give you details I don't have, but you are, of course, all welcome to come and see it and listen as they take the committee through their updates. And there is public comment during this meetings. It is at the beginning of the meeting. I don't believe there's been a comment period at the end, so I just want folks to keep that in mind, that you'll be commenting before you see their updated plan. And from my standpoint, we've been getting a ton of emails from people, which is great. At first, there weren't too many, and I was getting a little worried. But over the last few weeks, there have been many, many emails. And I have read every single one. I have not responded to every single one. I'm working my way through, so I just ask you to continue to have some patience. There are a lot of you, and I want to give you all thoughtful responses, which is sometimes difficult with my work schedule. So working on that, but I do want to say I've read and considered all of your emails, and I'll be getting back to all of you. So as the mayor noted in the beginning of the meeting, we're really the last body that gets this on the train to get to the vote to referendum. So we do welcome you to come to the building committee meetings and share your feedback there, hear from them. The Board of Ed also has a public comment period, and we'll be working on the ed specs, so the education specifications for these projects, so that the buildings really match what we need for our kids on an educational level. So any feedback on that is welcome there as well. So let's see. Trying not to repeat too many things. I know a lot was said tonight. Let's see. So I don't have a lot of details on this yet, but what I've been told in the interim between these meetings is that it's looking increasingly clear that Hanmer is going to need a lot of work. Whether it stays in the same place or it moves over to a different place on the property, it's going to need extensive work. So we're going to be looking at a practically new building, whether it's on the same site or right next to where it is. And I'm getting a nod from the back, so thank you. So when we're talking about the concerns about historic preservation, I do want people to know that in order to have equitable schools for all of our kids, all of the schools are going to need extensive work, and this one is no exception. It's in some of the worst shape. So we are going to be looking at changes, and it's going to have to be considered as part of this historic district preservation process, regardless of where it ends up. So I just want folks to be aware of that. This isn't going to be a patchwork project. It's not going to look the same in the end, no matter what. So people have been sending me examples of schools that look more historic, that are new, and I think it's really neat, some of the things that can be done. One looked like a barn. I don't know if we want to go for that. But there are options here, and there are creative ways that we can honor the historic nature of this district while still giving the kids the new school that they deserve, so that they are on the same playing field with all the rest of the kids in the district. And I think that's really, really key for this project. That really has to be the priority here. So the consultants and the committee, they're doing their due diligence right now. They need to pick a direction, which they've done, and stick to that direction and see it through so that they can work out all these questions that people have about traffic and safety and all the logistical questions. They need to have the opportunity to do that. So I understand there's a lot of questions, and that in an ideal world we would fully explore every single option all the way from the beginning to the end, but we do not have the time or resources to do that in a responsible way. They have considered all the swing school options. For a long time, they've asked for additional time from the consultants. They've asked for public meetings to make sure they get as much public feedback as possible. And this is the direction that they want to go in. So I'm in the boat that I'm going to let them go in that direction and let them fully explore this and let the consultants and the committee do what we've asked them to do. So they are, I understand, I think the consultants are meeting with the town attorney this week to go over any potential legal questions, including the HDC, so they'll be reviewing that with them. But this is all part of that due diligence process as they figure out what steps need to be taken, what I's need to be dotted and T's need to be crossed, so that when they present a plan to all of us, all of these questions that people have had will have been addressed in some way. That's the goal. So I know that everybody wants all the information right now, and I understand that. I'm just asking for a little patience and some grace for the work that the committee and consultants are doing to make sure that all of this is addressed. Let's see. So one thing that was mentioned tonight, there were a couple things about the HDC, and I do want to say that what I said last time about it being allowed to demolish in the district is absolutely correct. I can give you the statute reference. It's going to take me a second because it's in my old file. It is CGS section 7-147D. And I won't read you all the details, but write that down if you'd like to see it. It's that essentially they're not going to grant a certificate of, well, they aren't going to just say, yes, you can demolish. You have to go through the certificate of appropriateness process that every application has to go through regardless of what the change is. So, and they're also allowed to request any plans, elevations, specifications, material, other information, including in the case of demolition or removal, a statement of the proposed condition and appearance of the property after such demolition or removal as may be reasonably deemed necessary by the commission to enable it to make a decision. So they can say, okay, what's the vision for the park? What's it going to look like afterwards? But this is all allowed, and it's part of the process. They have to go through the application like any other application would. And the other thing that was said that I'd like to respond to is that what I said last time about the HDC being open to change. And I'll read from their handbook, which is on the town website. Let's see. We are sympathetic to the needs of current district property owners to expand, reduce, or otherwise modify their properties. In fact, the philosophical goal of historic preservation is not to freeze time, but to integrate the necessary and desirable changes that are signs of our neighborhood's continuing evolution and vitality. So it is about that balance, right? Our town does change. There are air conditioning condensers in the district that wouldn't have been there years ago. There are solar panels now, and it's not as easy as some people would like. But these things do evolve, and you can't freeze a neighborhood in time. So you may have different views of what that means for the neighborhood, but that is in the handbook, that is part of their duty to balance that historic preservation with the changing needs of the community. Even when, if you've ever been in the district and you've wanted to add an addition to your house, they don't want it to look exactly like the rest of your house, because then it's almost pretending to be something it's not, right? It's supposed to look like it's new. Not that it clashes, but that it's not exactly the same. It's supposed to be obvious that it is an addition, so that it's telling the story of development over the history of that property in the district. So, getting back to I'm clicking between multiple things right now. So, as the mayor mentioned, it seems like we're heading towards a September referendum right now. Originally, we wanted to do June. That was definitely an aggressive timeline. The committee has been doing, like I said the word several times tonight, due diligence, and there just doesn't seem to be enough time to actually get all of the due diligence done and get that communication out to everybody that everybody expects in time for us to have to set the referendum date and send it to the Secretary of State and essentially leave it up to the public to figure out the rest. So we really want to give this the best chance to pass and to make sure that you all have as much information as possible going into this. So that's likely what we're looking at right now, but we'll certainly keep you updated on that as we go forward. And let's see. Just one note about Keisha, because I know that's been brought up a few times today. Yes, the Historic District has to weigh in on Hanmer. The Inland Wetlands Commission would also need to weigh in on Keisha. There are wetlands on that property, and I've been getting emails this weekend about protected species and concerns about that from people in the neighborhood. So my point is just, there are things like that, regardless of where this swing school ends up. That's why this was kind of either one of these sites was going to be a viable option, and it was also going to come with challenges. So neither one of these sites would have been perfect. Stillman is the one that they've selected, so we're going to let them go forward with that and work through that process. And I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I always go on longer than I think I'm going to.
Councilor Zambrelli?
I try to respond to people who have said things so that I'm covering as much as possible while you're still here and you don't have to hear about it later. I just wanted to give some other notes about why I'm so excited about this project, and you've heard some of them tonight, but we're going to have 5 new schools for our kids. One of them is going to be a 5-6, which allows us to not only claim the full reimbursement for that building because of the history and the way it was designed as a middle school, but it also allows us to give those kids a chance to be with kids their own age a little bit sooner, help that transition to middle school and then high school, and also to concentrate our resources and services for those kids in one building rather than having them spread out. It brings us more in line with other communities. I think there was a comment last time that we're the only town that doesn't do this. That's not accurate. It's unusual to have a K-6 system at this point. Most towns don't do this. So we're moving more in the direction that other towns are in. We're also preserving Charles Wright. I was a Charles Wright kid. I voted for the last referendum, but I didn't love that my school was disappearing. We have a lot of nostalgia for these properties. I think we've seen that a lot tonight and in the previous discussions, and that was a big problem for the last referendum. That school was going to be closed. So I think it's really exciting that we're going to keep Charles Wright, and it's going to be just as beautiful as the other new schools. And I think there have been questions, maybe it's been just in emails, about renovate is new. What exactly does that mean? Renovate is new means you're going to have a new school at the end. It's going to be on the same site, but they have to get it completely up to code, completely up to handicap accessibility. It's got to have technology capabilities throughout the entire building. They have to do as much as possible to make that building practically new. So that doesn't mean that if you get a new school, is that better than getting a renovated as new? Not really. In the end, it's all new. It's going to be beautiful. And we will have equitable class sizes, which is great. We don't have right now. You've heard from one speaker tonight that I think she said her child's class has 27 kids in it, which is obviously not ideal. The way that we're restructuring these schools will allow them all to be the same size and to take the same size population, which is great for now. It also gives us some flexibility if there are population shifts in the future. So that's going to be a nice change for everybody. And last time around, the referendum language, I think, was confusing for people. It just said, this is the total amount, and didn't reflect the state reimbursement and what the town actually pays. So the town has been meeting with bond counsel. They're going to work on that language, and for this upcoming referendum, it will be very clear in the language what the town is paying, what the state is paying, so that hopefully, we're just trying to clear up all those communication issues that happened last time and get it so that you all know what you're voting on by the time we get there. So have I covered everything? Probably not. I always remember something afterwards that I wish I had said, but I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrello, and appreciate the thoroughness of your report and the efforts you've been as the liaison to the building committee. Further council reports. I will just quickly give two updates from the insurance committee and from the senior citizen advisory committee. For the insurance committee, I'll just highlight something important is our insurance committee consultants are telling us that we will need to put a 6% increase into the budget for the insurance portion. So that's a significant number, and you will see that reflected both on the board and the town side when we do the budgeting. I'll leave it at that for the insurance committee. For the senior citizen advisory committee, we've had a lot of new members join in the last 6 months, and they've been terrific. A lot of care and concern for our seniors, and the main topics, and you've heard this from me before, are what are you going to do to update and upgrade the senior center? And one of the things the committee is looking at is to send out a survey. What kind of updates and upgrades would you like to see? And what other key issues are there for you? And that was discussed at the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. If there are no other council reports, I will move on to councilor comments. Does any councilor have a comment this evening? Seeing none, I'll just make one. 2 weeks ago, we had the mayor's charity ball, and I've reported on this before. We have two charities that we are going to be awarding money to, and they are the Wethersfield Food Bank and the American Traveling Tribute Veterans Wall. A lot of you on the council and the town manager and a lot of you in the public supported that event. We had a great turnout, and we will be donating $10,000 to these causes, which is terrific. It will help bring the Veterans Wall to us in September, and will help us at the food pantry. So I thank all of you. We'll actually be having a check presentation ceremony here Friday at 11, and the public is welcome, where we'll be giving those funds from the Mayor's Charity Ball organization to the town of Wethersfield. That'll be it for councilor comments, and we will move on to town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update for folks. The next meeting, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I can't imagine anything I'd rather be doing on St. Patrick's Day. But fortunately, it's the day before March Madness starts, so at least we got that going for us. But the Board of Ed will be presenting, the superintendent will be presenting the Board of Ed budget at that meeting. And then that will be Superintendent Emmett's final budget presentation, as he's retiring this year. So we look forward to that presentation and congratulate him on his well-deserved retirement. The town budget will then be presented on April 21st, which is the day of the public hearing. And as part of that process, I just want everyone to understand, the purpose of these presentations is to give an overview of the proposed budgets from the superintendent and myself. It is not to go line item by line item and give you every increase across the entire budget. That's what the budget book is for, and that will be available to everybody on those dates for download. And this year especially, we actually have a new budgeting software that will allow you to go in, and you can go into any department and you'll be able to drill down, see things displayed in different forms, if you like bar charts versus pie charts, that kind of thing. It's going to be a much more user-friendly environment for you all. It'll be better for the council when they're going through their deliberations, but it's also going to allow you to drill down if you want to see more of that detail. But that's not what the presentation's for. The presentation's to give you the overview. what are the major drivers of the budget, and then ultimately kind of give you a sense of, based upon the proposed, what that might mean for a mill rate and those types of things. It'll talk about the reval and the impact of the reval on the budget, all those types of things, but we're not going to get into the line item level. If you want that, again, that information is available to everyone, and you can also watch all of the department workshops that we'll be doing with the council that will take place in this room and will be live streamed as well. So you can get that kind of detail. They'll go line by line for any increases in that process, just like we've done in years past. I'd also like to mention quickly that, once again, we're into March now, and if you didn't take advantage last year, our yard waste collection will begin again the first full week of April, and that will run through the end of the last full week of November. So if, I'm sure we've got a lot of fallen debris from these storms this winter, so just be prepared. You can start putting that stuff out that first week of April. If you have not ordered your, or purchased a brown barrel yet, you can still do that just by going up on the Payne's website. There's also a link on our website to go up and do that, and I recommend you all take advantage of that service. If not, you can always use the brown bags, the leaf bags that you can get at your local hardware store. I also just want to quickly respond to one of the comments that, a woman made earlier about the leak at the nurse's office at Highcrest. That was actually repaired fully on Friday, and that's up and running, and everything's back in working order. It was these old schools, pipe broke, water pipe broke, and it did cause flooding. They couldn't use it for a few days while they went in. They repaired it, dried it out, and it's back up and running as of Friday. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Town Clerk's report, Sue?
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Sue. Move right through that agenda. Thank you. Moving on to bids, number I-1, do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to authorize the town manager to award a contract to General Paving and Construction Corporation for an amount up to $2,899,720 to provide on-call construction services for the duration of the contract and execute any and all related documents and amendments.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Zambrello. Mr. Town Manager.
I'm going to bring up our town engineer, Derek Greger, and he can give you an overview of this.
Derek, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Derek Greger. I'm town engineer. This is a renewal of a contract the town's had for many years. Our last contract expired at the end of December. This contractor that works under this contract for us really works as an extension of our town staff. They work very closely with physical services and engineering departments. Some of the things they'll be doing is helping us with our paving programs that we do every year. They do road repairs, install curb, driveway aprons, drainage improvements, things like that. So when we put out the bid, we received 4 bids. Reviewing our procurement policy, we are allowed to review and make considerations based on performance during past projects for the town and in town, and also award to the lowest responsible and qualified bidder, possessing the skill, ability, and integrity necessary to faithfully perform the work. So in this instance, the low bidder on this particular bid, we have worked with in the past. We had significant issues on a couple of different projects. Issues related to quality of work, safety, schedule delays, inadequate staffing, non-payment for police services, and some other issues that were very well documented at the time. This is intended to be a 3-year contract. As I said, they work very closely with us, so we really need a responsive and reliable contractor that can be available when we need them. So based on that and reviewing the bids, recommendation from staff is to award it to General Paving rather than the low bidder in this instance. They have worked with town staff for quite a few years. They've been really critical component of a lot of our paving programs and a lot of our operations to keep things moving as quickly as possible. They have indicated a willingness to negotiate some of their pricing, to maybe bring down some pricing, particularly for items that we use a lot, so we can have those conversations with them before we execute a contract. We did run this by the town attorney, just to be sure he was comfortable with the documentation we had on the low bidder. And, it's really not typical for us to do this. We usually are taking low bidder, but in this instance, they felt comfortable. We were on good grounds not to do that in this case. So I'm here tonight really to recommend award to General Paving as most responsible and qualified bidder. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Derek. Any questions, councilors of Derek? Counselor Clancy.
Just, I assume they're the next lowest bidder.
Correct.
Okay.
Cindy,
Oh, I'm
pull your
sorry.
mic down.
Say it again for the record. I assume they are the next lowest bidder.
They're the second lowest bidder.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Clancy. Further, Counselor Carbone.
Hi, thank you for answering our questions. This might be for both of you. What is our recourse if we hire a company and they're not following through on their contractual obligations?
Good question.
It can be very challenging. We had the situation on the Broad Street project a couple years ago, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of back and forth with attorneys, and it costs us a lot of extra money, frankly, when this happens. Eventually, we get to settlement, but it's not a process we want to be in, particularly when we have, like Derek said, this was very well documented, not just by us, too. There are others that have used them, too, that have had similar documentation that we provided to the attorney, so.
Thank you. And you said you're going to go into negotiations with them a little bit more to see if they'll come down their pricing
Correct.
before the contracts are signed?
Yes.
And then one last thing. Did we do we got the paving box. Did we not do that? We did. And would that alter any of this, help with this? Is that reflected in this?
Yeah, we did. We have adjusted this contract to try and account for the fact that we expect physical services to be doing more of this type of work. They're really that, in speaking and working with physical services, you know, they will be notified of what needs to be done first. We'll go over that with them, and whatever they feel they can do and have time to do, they will. And this is really to supplement that. So we are using them much more for drainage, for road repairs, and these types of things with the equipment and staff that they have. So that is the first. This is really a fallback when they're not available. And sometimes we have so much work in a short amount of time that they'll work in tandem together with the crews.
Okay. Thank you.
Well said, Counselor
thank
Carbone. Any other counsel? No? And I call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Moving along, we have next the consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Counselor Rhodes. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. On to K1, and I think we have a motion for this one as well. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to authorize the town to enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, it's quite the line, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate, and further resolve that Frederick Presley, I always call him Fred, as CEO, town manager of the town of Weathersfield, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the Weathersfield Town Council.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by
Can you just go through the documents? Yeah, I'm sorry, through your chair, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
You're good,
manager.
Counselor Bailey.
Certainly.
Just to make it clear that the council documents, just make sure what those are.
Sure, the documents are essentially, anytime we get a grant from the state or the federal government, they require certain documents that go along with that, basically that we will follow all their rules, that we will, use the money for its intended purposes, and they give us forms we have to fill out, and all those have to be signed by me on your behalf in order to execute the agreements. So they're grant agreements. Sometimes on a grant like this, a small grant, could be one page. For larger grants, it could be a book. It just really depends on the extent of the grant, but we have to execute all these documents. A lot of it has to do with, how we, pay people and, how we, follow certain federal rules and those types of things. We'll be audited, all those types of things. So it's just a bunch of forms that we have to fill out for the grants.
We'll need a second.
Counselor Zimmer. Counselor Bailey all set?
Yeah.
Counselor Carbone.
I think you asked that for me. Thank you. But I do have some follow-up questions, if you don't mind. So I appreciate that. So when you say grants, so is this motion allowing you to do this paperwork for all grants that come in, or is it this one specifically for this?
This is a required, this is a requirement for this grant that you all pass a resolution saying that I can sign their forms.
Okay.
For this grant.
So, but on the resolution, it doesn't say for this grant. It just seems a little open to anything and anything coming from the Connecticut
The
Department.
motion is for resolution. The resolution's actually provided by them, and it's more detailed, and it gives the specifics of that.
Specific grant
Yeah.
only, okay.
Counselor Carbone, all set?
Good, I'm good.
Anybody, other council questions?
Yeah.
Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, we have no unfinished business, no new business M. We're on N1, an ordinance for introduction. Mr. Town Manager, N1.
Thank you, Mayor. We discussed this at the last meeting. This is O25-001. This is an amendment to your orders of business for Town Council rules and procedures, and this is for introduction only, but as we discussed at the last meeting, this is to allow for a second council comment to be added to your orders of procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Council comments on this item?
Oh, are we discussing?
No, I'm just looking, is anybody having comments? Councilor Carbone, do you want to comment on this item?
I probably should, so, yeah.
You are the author of it.
I really, I didn't write any of this, so thank you. And even under the proposed, because it says section 11, public comments, A, public, B, council comments, that's the only place it can go on the, or would it be a subsection unto itself? Because it's not, we're not considered public.
Well, specifically for response to the public comment is the way it was presented to us, so that's why we put it under that. We just figured it would be cleaner, so it wouldn't be like comment on anything, because you've already done that, but it's really about having an opportunity to respond to any of the second public comment that you heard.
Okay.
To give that. So if you want it to be different, we could certainly,
I think we can all discuss it.
Yeah.
The reason I had brought it up was because I think there's a lot of times when we're in council, and I know I've said this before, where things get said at the end of a meeting and it kind of just hangs in the air for 2 weeks. And maybe there's something that we could provide context for at the end to kind of give maybe a better understanding for people.
Absolutely.
I just don't want it to become a question and answer session. I don't also want anybody to get on their soapbox up on the council, so I know we're going into it in good faith. But I'm open. Obviously, I've been trying to discuss it, so I'm open to any and all discussion, comments. We could also see how it goes, and if it's not something that's working for us, we could also change it.
absolutely.
So, Councilor Carbone, I appreciate the spirit of your idea here, and from here, we'll move on the agenda for us to take action on it. And as was explained, this will give us an opportunity, if someone speaks at the public comments at the end, which are coming up, they'll give an opportunity for us to respond at the end, which I think is a nice idea. It's not necessarily an opportunity, as you say, for all of us to get on our soapboxes at the end of a meeting when it's late at night, but rather to respond. So it's for introduction only, everyone, but it will be on the agenda at our next meeting for a vote, and it would add to our council agenda, and we would change.
Hopefully
the
not
agenda.
too much. Just
Not too much, we don't want to be here too late, but I appreciate the spirit of what your suggestion is, and it will be on our agenda in 2 weeks. Councilor Clancy, did I see your hand go up?
Yeah, briefly. I would just say I think it's a great idea, and I think perfect example was just now with this thing with the sink in the nurse's office. It was short and sweet. We could tell people it's all set, and it's good to know people aren't worried about it for however long.
Thank you, Councilor Clancy. You'll be happy to know there's no executive session tonight, Councilor, so we're in the last part of our agenda, which is the second public comment. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but please state your name and address, and I ask you to please be respectful. Would anyone like to speak during this second public comment before the adjournment? Christine, I see yours. Sarah, you're on deck. Mr. Young, I have you too.
Christine Kelly Lasella, 37 Belmont Street. Just a couple of things, and I'm not saying this is on the council, because this whole school board committee referendum, I don't know what to call it anymore, but I think the communication needs to be better to the community as a whole. It was stated in the last council meeting that the committee has, I'm right so small, had gathered information from residents and stakeholders and had conversations. I live in Old Wethersfield, and the only people I've heard speak about it have been two people that are I think one of them spoke earlier. Nobody in my neighborhood, the people that live on the east end of the park, have heard nothing about it. I live around the corner. You know, I've been slapped on Facebook for like, oh, you must live there and that's why you care. And I don't. I live around the corner. But why do I care? Why do I care about schools? That was mentioned at the last meeting, that some of these people that are speaking, their kids are, my kids are done at the schools. I went to all the public schools here. My parents went to public school here. But I care about my town. I was born here. I'm going to die here. So I do have a right to say and share, and I do pay my taxes, which is why I lean towards Keisha land, because we bought it, and we pay for it, and I think it would be a wonderful use for that. Now, it's being indicated here that potentially the decision has been made, Stillman's going to be the referendum site, and maybe I have to go to the building committee meeting and ask the 7 people that made that decision, well, 5 people made that decision for the town, if that's going to be the referendum. Yes, you can go to HDC to ask for a building to be demolished. I'm racking my brain. I don't know of one in Old Weathersfield that has been yet. Garages have to be falling down to get approved. And when I say falling down, like crooked or literally falling down. In 2007, the town historic district approved the Comstock barns to be demolished so a guy could put some retail and apartments above them. And that was taken to court, and the barns are still there. People in Old Weathersfield are serious. The historic people are serious. I guess it's fair you could say, yes, you can go to them. If someone in historic district has indicated to the committee that, yes, that school can be knocked down, that is very wrong to say, because that's not how the process works. I renovated my home that I live in. I put an addition on it. I flipped a house in Old Weathersfield. I know exactly what has to go on. I'm not an expert, but I know you can't just call them up and ask if you can do something. There's a process. My husband currently is renovating a house on Church Street in the historic district, and he's gone back 3 times for a front door. A front door. I'm not angry at the historic district. I'm using that as an example that is how serious it is. It's not just, this is the school, this is what it's going to look like. The impact on the neighborhood of a structure is taken into serious consideration when you talk about a local historic district. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll email you guys. And I appreciate you guys reading emails. I don't expect anybody to email me back. You guys give your time up here. I'm just sharing facts, and I'm not, that's all I'm sharing. But intrusions are buildings or structures that disrupt the common or overall character of an area. Visual or other intrusions may compromise the character of a potential historic district. Intrusions. That could be an intrusion. I'm not the judge of that, but the State Historic Commission might come in and think that. I think it's unfair for anyone to state, I understand what happened at Hamner. My kids went there, but I think it's unfair for the public to think, and especially people in Old Weathersfield, if you don't vote for this, Hamner is going to be the last school to get done. That's wrong, because we don't know. And I want your guys' help to talk with the building committee, and let's get some better information. What is the timeline for this? Who does it go to next? And how do we as a community get to have our input rather than, going back and forth and people, I'm just sharing facts, and maybe some people think what I say is wrong. But I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just trying to tell you the truth. And people are talking in Old Weathersfield, and they're getting together. And Comstock Barns could repeat itself, and then that puts the whole thing on hold. So it's just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Sarah, and then I have Mr. Young after Sarah.
Hello, Sarah Gantley, 16 The Cartway, and I'm just coming up to share my, that I hope that we can all support the Building Committee's recommendation to move forward with our referendum on our Stillman site. We hear a lot of people talking about the historic nature of Weathersfield and absolutely, who doesn't love going to historic Old Weathersfield? And I know a lot of the people sitting before me are parents or aunts or uncles. And I would just like to get up here as a parent and say that I wish my biggest concern with sending my child to school was aesthetics. I wish that my biggest concern was what's the door gonna look like? But when I drop my kids off at school, when I drop my nephew off at school, I have to worry that they're gonna get shot. And I have to worry that they're going to be a shooter who can get in through our schools with their lack of security. How when you walk into Webb Elementary School, there's no holding place. That it would take nothing for somebody to walk in and go right up the stairs to my upper class, my third graders classroom. So while I can empathize with not wanting change to our parks, that's what's been put forward. And so voting no on that is putting further delays on maintaining the safety of our students. So I can understand the concerns that people have, and quite frankly, I would, if you guys were like, put it in Sarah's backyard, I don't care where the school gets built. Our kids need new schools because they're not safe. They're not built for the world that we live in. And Lord knows that I wish that wasn't the concern that I had to have when I dropped my kids off at school. But I've taken care of enough gunshot victims that, like, I don't think any of us want that for anybody in our community. And so we need to support this so that our children can be safe. I appreciate appreciate historic sites. I appreciate Stillman Park. But what I appreciate the most is the safety of our children. And so when you're looking to vote on these things, please consider that historic sites, yes, those are so important, but like nothing holds a candle like to the safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Young?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. A few minutes ago, Mr. Derrick was up here talking about on-call construction service contract award. And I believe shortly thereafter his discussion, well, during his discussion, he mentioned that they had a few issues with this particular vendor, General Paving. And then Ms. Carbone asked, what do you do with something like this against a vendor who doesn't perform what he's supposed to? And it seemed like the manager was not, even though he said something, I couldn't understand it. You should have gone after the vendor if he has done poor work. You know, it's part of being in this kind of business. You hire somebody to do the job, and if they have problems, you got to go back after them. Even though you got to get your attorneys and go after them, you've got to do it, and it costs time and money. But that's business. You know, it wasn't long ago, months ago, that this council, approved putting a new roof, 2 sections of a roof on Highcrest School. Do we remember that? Yeah. Why? The roof was only 11 years old. And I asked the town manager, did they take legal action? I know the town manager wasn't here at that time, but he said, if I recall correctly, no action was taken against this particular vendor. But here we are, putting a new roof on the school, which is costing us, you voted for $158,000, not to exceed $185,000. That's a lot of money, and that vendor who originally put that new roof on and it only lasted 11 years should have come back and done something to make it right. Whether he put on a whole new roof or he fixed at least the portions that were leaking. But from what I understand, it wasn't done. We now are having a new roof put on. I don't know how they're along on it right now, because I haven't driven by the school in a long time, but we shouldn't have been paying $158,000 with a not to exceed 185. That's a lot of money, and that's a problem with government. You know, I came up with a whole bunch of issues or bullets about government because, you know, the town manager says that town government is not a business. And I firmly believe it is a business. You deal with businesses. You're out there competing with businesses on when you buy your goods and services. You sign legal contracts just like businesses. And you operate in the entire business world. Because you're a municipality, the only differences are you get your revenue from taxpayers. You don't produce a product. What does government produce? You don't produce a product and sell it. You grab the taxpayers' money. That's how you get your funding. You don't pay taxes. You don't pay electric bill taxes like the citizens do. You don't pay taxes on your cell phones. You don't pay taxes on your water bill. You don't pay taxes on anything you buy. You buy a vehicle, you don't pay a tax. That's that's a difference between business and a municipality. But that difference is you're still a business. And you don't take actions against contractors that don't fulfill their duty on their contracts. When they screw up, you do nothing to them. Let them walk away, because that's exactly what happened at Highcrest School. So, you are a business. I think you should start to operate like a business. And look at the dollars and cents that you have to spend, because it's going to run out, Mayor. People can't keep paying your exorbitant high increases in taxes.
Young, your time is up. Can
I
you
know
please
my
summarize?
time is always up. But the fact is, you got to join the real world, which is part of where the rest of us
Thank you,
are.
Mr. Young. Is there any further public comment tonight? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Officer Knapp, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Maybe people did this.